Hello, welcome to another Purple Insider Extra. Matthew Coller here from home today. I had to run home to do an interview, but out there at TCO Performance Center, Sam Ekstrom. What is up, Sam?
You missed Daniil Hunter talk about a superstition that he has with Everson Griffin, which is pretty interesting. Instead of telling everyone about it, maybe we'll post it on the Purple Insider Twitter channel.
Oh, that's a good idea. People can go follow that at Purple_Insider or me at Matthew Coller, you at Sam Ekstrom. Okay, so let's discuss this game between the Vikings and Cleveland Browns, the Kevin Stefanski revenge game, if you will. Now, Sam, I was always very impressed with Kevin Stefanski during his time here. I enjoy listening to players talk about their experiences with Kevin Stefanski, and I think that there's an idea of the young, offensive, creative mind that doesn't always play out around the NFL the way that it's expected. But the route that Kevin Stefanski took to be the head coach of the Cleveland Browns, coming in the Childress era and working his way all the way through multiple coaches, including Mike Zimmer, to get where he is, I think he is well proven. And the Vikings are facing one of the better coaches in the NFL this weekend.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Like, Matthew, in your career, you had to cover AHL hockey and announce minor league baseball, right? You had to toil and you had to climb the ladder. And that's what Kevin Stefanski had to do. And just as I, think you're a great sports writer now at the NFL level, Matthew, I think that Kevin sort of likewise went about his business the right way. He learned from the bottom up. He was literally the lowest level assistant for Brad Childress, and he position coached like most of the offense at one point, became an offensive coordinator, and had a very brief stint doing that. Didn't have to wait as long as Mike Zimmer, for instance, to get his first opportunity. But it doesn't mean he didn't work really, really hard to get there for a decade and a half. And with the same organization, too, where he got myriad influences and different philosophies that he's been able to incorporate. And it seems like he kind of absorbed the best of coaches when it comes to managing players. Every player who talks about him loves him. Dalvin Cook said, once my coach, always my coach. He really was instrumental in my career. CJ Ham said that. Kirk Cousins said that he already knew Kevin Stefanski was going to be great when he met him at the Senior Bowl back in 2012, when Stefanski was like 30 years old. So he seems to make an impression on everybody he meets, and he's 13-6 now in his first 19 games as an NFL coach.
Well, the one thing that we know about Kevin Stefanski is that when he was here operating Gary Kubiak's offense, he added a lot of very unique and interesting wrinkles and was as cutting edge as he could be for an offense that wants to run first. Well, now in Cleveland, it seems that Stefanski has taken their offense from whatever it was with Freddie Kitchens, and he has designed it around Baker Mayfield for the play action game. He's designed the run game to be creative, and they've built an excellent offensive line. I think of the offenses that the Vikings have faced, and 2 out of 3, you would make an argument, are very good offenses in Arizona and Seattle. But I think this one adds more elements of creativity to it that is going to stress and challenge Mike Zimmer's defense even more. And Mike Zimmer acknowledged this week that there were some times where these guys who are new starters, 7 new starters on defense, have not exactly been on the same page. So if they can't get that together and shored up by this weekend, then Kevin Stefanski is the type to be able to take full advantage.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, the Vikings are looking in a mirror, except it's a more elaborate mirror. There's more motions, there's more tricks and eye violations for the defense to deal with. And the offensive line is just going to make all of that execute better because they're going to protect the quarterback. So I think we'll see some familiar things, 12 personnel, 13 personnel, and then they'll pass out of a run set and run out of a pass set, and they'll marry the run and the pass game, as Kevin Stefanski always said that he was trying to do here. But they're doing it with really good personnel, and they've got the best running game, arguably, in the NFL to back it up, with 2 elite running backs that are going off at 5 yards a pop, and Odell Beckham Jr. in the passing game, and David Njoku at tight end. There's not really a weakness on that offense. So the Vikings are going to have to figure things out defensively pretty fast and clean up some of those breakdowns, because if you do that against Cleveland, that they'll probably make you pay.
Right. And so the Vikings defense in the second half showed some flashes of what we expected from them with some big plays against Russell Wilson. But early in the game, they were especially gashed on the ground, which I think is something that we didn't necessarily expect going into the season. But we also saw Dalvin Tomlinson have his best overall graded game by Pro Football Focus, and he got a game ball after the game, according to Andre Patterson. So I think with the way that the defensive line played against Seattle, you wouldn't exactly throw a giant celebration over it because they did give up some big runs. But I also think that the combination of Tomlinson playing well and the best we've seen Everson Griffin out of the two games, I think it bodes well for what they'll be able to do against a very good Cleveland offensive line.
Yeah, I think that's the hope for Vikings fans. Baker Mayfield, even behind that really good offensive line, has been sacked quite a bit. For a guy who's not dropping back that often, he's been sacked 10% of the time, which is an extremely high sack rate. Now, it's only been 3 games. But everyone talks about the Browns having 9 sacks against the Bears. Bears had 5 sacks in that game too. The quarterbacks just could not stay upright. So maybe there's a little crack in the armor there for the Browns. The Vikings have been running stunts really effectively. And I think part of that was, trying to get guys moving outside to set the edge against some of those mobile quarterbacks. But I think Baker Mayfield isn't going to be quite as slithery as Wilson and Murray. And how many times did we see, Hunter or Griffin get to the quarterback and then just have them slip out of their fingertips? I think that they have shown good things. We're not going to see as much from those tackles in terms of a pass rush just because of who they are. Tomlinson and Pierce aren't going to penetrate quite as much. The guy you expect more from is Sheldon Richardson. That's going to be a key in this game, is when they do have their smaller personnel on the field, can Richardson kind of channel that really elite pass rusher the Vikings saw in 2018, a season where I think he also came and went a little bit. He had some really high highs and some low lows as well. So he's got to tap into one of those really good games.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say about Sheldon Richardson, is that we know when he is really on point that he can be a complete game wrecker, and we haven't seen that so far. I think he had some effective rushes against Seattle, but he'll have a chance here to battle against his former team, and who released him late in the process, and I think he was reasonably upset about that, and it probably cost him some money that they didn't release him early in the offseason. They waited until they could get Jadeveon Clowney. Speaking of which, I think this is going to be by far the toughest matchup that the Vikings face in terms of defensive lines. And also, Dalvin Cook's status still remains up in the air. He did not play last week. And when we talked to him today, he was talking about, quote, attacking his rehab. But I think what we've seen is that Alexander Mattison can fill in at any given time, and the Vikings do not miss a beat in terms of their run and screen game.
Yeah, and for the record, too, Dalvin Cook had a helmet limited participant in practice, so already progress from last week. I'd be a little surprised if he didn't play. I think that there's a better than 50-50 chance that he plays in this game. I guess they'll see how the ankle responds. But usually when you've got a helmet on Wednesday, you're tracking toward playing. It's not like he needs to get into game shape. He's already there. He just needs to be able to cut and do the movements necessary. And he's a tough guy. He likes to play through injury. I think that he probably plays in this game. And if he doesn't, Alexander Mattison's going to be fine. I mean, in his last 2 games, filling in for Dalvin Cook as a starter, he's averaging like 6 yards a touch between the screen game and the run game. He's been very effective. So the Vikings don't need to have any qualms about that.
So in past years where we've seen Kirk Cousins hit the skids a little bit is when the opposing team has a great defensive line. And I think that this team has a great defensive line. Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney are 2 of the most game-wrecking players in the NFL. Myles Garrett already has 5.5 sacks, 41 sacks in his last 43 games for Myles Garrett. And Jadeveon Clowney is coming off a really excellent game. Both times the Vikings have faced Clowney, or maybe 3 times that they've faced him, he's always been problematic for them. So I think that this sort of tests all theories about, is Kirk Cousins' leadership different? Is Mike Zimmer's film sessions, which he said are continuing with Kirk Cousins, are those making a huge difference against the defense? Or will we see, when the offensive line gets pushed back a bit or has some troubles, that the level of performance decidedly dips? And that seems to apply either home or away for Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, maybe Dalvin Cook said it best today, where he said, with a clean pocket, Kirk's the best in the game. And it was a big statement to say that, but it's not as far from true as you might think. It's just that the pocket, number one, the pocket's not going to be clean all the time for any quarterback. So every quarterback has to deal with pressure, and Kirk has not been good at dealing with pressure typically. He takes a lot of sacks. He fumbles the football. His accuracy, it's decent. His completion percentage stays high, but his passer rating goes down. He doesn't make as many big throws. This year, he is making some of those throws, but he hasn't been challenged that much. I think if the offensive line does fold a little bit, we are going to see some more precarious situations for Kirk Cousins. And then, he'll be put to the test when the pocket is not clean, when sometimes the turnovers start happening and the confidence dips. So yeah, let's really put this hot streak to the test and see if Kirk Cousins can withstand a genuinely good pass rush.
Give me a 1 to 10. How big is this football game for the Minnesota Vikings 2021 season, Sam?
After the Seahawks win, I said 6.5 was the size of that win. So I think the Browns game is obviously more important. I think it's a 7.8. Where, get back to 2-2, you're looking good. Drop to 1-3, and you're chasing. You're chasing. You're hoping to be 500 at the bye, and even after that, you go into the meat of your schedule. You're still behind the 8 ball at 3-3. You need to be above 500, I think, at the bye week, and you can't do that unless you win this game.
Yep. If they do not beat Cleveland, then all of a sudden there's no room for error when it comes to playing against the Detroit Lions and Carolina Panthers, two teams that I don't think are very good. Carolina is going to have to prove it down the road when they face some tougher opponents, but still we have seen the Vikings come up short or have one thing go wrong in the NFL, and you can lose a game that you're not supposed to lose. So this one, I think, would take them back on a track to be right in the mix for the NFC North, right in the mix for the playoffs. And you talk about confidence, momentum, those things, how real they are, I guess everyone can debate, but you would have a heck of a lot of confidence coming out of a game where you beat a very good coach, a very good roster, and a team that came in with Super Bowl expectations in the Cleveland Browns. So we'll talk again, of course, all the time here on the Purple Insider Extra channel. But if you want to listen to our longer conversations, go to wherever you get your podcast, Purple Insider, and read our written work, purpleinsider.substack.com. And we'll catch you guys next time. Thanks, Sam.
Mm-hmm.